on exactly according to plan, so to speak. Let's see if that happens here. We got ByuN at a 2-0 scoreline, looking to lock up playoffs, and Kelazhur 0-2-0-4, looking to win his first map and keep his playoff hopes alive.
Well, we're gonna have to see what happens because, well, this man in the bottom left did beat Maru in Atlanta, that master of TBT. See if he can do it again. Well, actually, this is ByuN. What am I saying? All discombobulated from the quick comeback. ByuN, you're right. He is at 2-0.
And I think what you were getting towards, spawning up at the top right for R8 is Kelazhur. And I think what you were getting towards there is that this is a this is a matchup where Kelazhur kind of figured something out earlier than his opponents. He didn't defeat Maru in the series, but he was able to take down one of those maps early on. He ultimately lost 1-2, but we looked at that and we were like, oh, wow, like Kelazhur must really be on point, no? And he is playing very well, but more so than anything, he figured out how to deal with the Cyclone play in an interesting way. I don't think he necessarily is going to be able to replicate it super easily, but very cool for Kelazhur that he was able to start things off with that.
Yeah, and now that this Cyclone meta is a bit more developed, we have seen players going and trying to do things that are not Cyclones to see if they can maybe find some other option to go. I keep going back to Gumiho opening Concussive Shell Marauder, which I don't think we're going to see from anyone here. But there have been other ways to try to approach things. We've been seeing a lot of Reaper expand, single gas expand. It's not happening in this game necessarily. And as it stands, right, again, with the matchups or with the openings being pretty mirrored, Quicker Reactor comes out from Kelazhur to make himself maybe a little bit happier. ByuN's going to get his second Reaper up to give a little bit more power on the map. Regardless, as this setup gets pretty mirrored, we're going to see Cyclones coming out. I'm going to assume reactored Cyclones eventually, getting a starport for Cyclone drops and things like that. This has to be something that you kind of look at and say, well, this is a matchup right now that more so than a lot of things really benefits players who are fast, really benefits players who are incredible at multitasking. And, you know, Steadfast, I think I just described ByuN.
You sure did. One of the greatest micro players of all time. However, he drops a quick tech lab, and it's just single Cyclone to start things off. So that should tell you that, you know, maybe the alarm bells we had coming out of Atlanta where it was mass Cyclone versus mass Cyclone, maybe not everyone is going to be going for that. Maybe we will see more of this tank style play now on a map like Hecate, where there are, you know, lots of tight chokes around the map. By the way, are you wanting to just do the observing for this one, or are you wanting to?
I missed your observer, so I don't know what number you're on. So
I should be on 5 or 6.
In the natural?
Yep, that's me.
Okay, great, excellent.
Yeah, but the way that this is has shaped up is that on a map like this, where there are relatively tight chokes, it's not super easy to maneuver around with your Cyclones like we saw Cure doing on Solaris, where he was able to intercept some reinforcements. You're not going to be able to do that on Hecate. Obviously, that was a different series entirely, but it is quite interesting what we're seeing. Meanwhile, Kelazhur building a very early Liberator, and that is something I would not expect in the slightest. We are going to see Kelazhur getting in for a big scout. He did see the tech lab on his opponent's factory, which is incredibly good information to have. He sees that there was a siege tank at the natural, which is also good information. And this is going to be very much like the TBT of old, with those big 1-1-1 style, you know, 3-tank Raven style plays. The type of play that Cure was the master of.
Yeah, it's interesting as well as we take a look at the more developed story around this, right? Because ByuN, you say, yeah, he's not going into that Cyclone style that much, which is true. We're not seeing it. But ByuN was one of those players that was, more than anyone else, he was developing the Cyclone style going into Atlanta. Like, that was his thing, that he showed up on ladder, like, or in some small cups, like 2 weeks before Atlanta and said, hey, you know, mass Cyclones against Terrans are really, really good. And I think it's interesting to see him be one of those players that's kind of diving off the Cyclone style pretty much just as quickly as, you know, he developed the meta, and now he's going to play against the meta. But for now, the other thing we have to point out, Kelazhur, he's got an interference matrix on this Raven. ByuN not opting into it for the time being. I don't know if this signals that he's just going to build less Ravens overall, or maybe just gets it a little bit later. Regardless, Kelazhur, he's going to have a lot more power budget in these Ravens as we move forward. This ability to shut down tanks, shut down other units. And, you know, Steadfast, the more I look at this, it's a bit of a surprise to me that we're going to see 3 Ravens out of ByuN and no shutdown, no interference matrix.
Yeah, that's a mistake as far as I'm concerned. That's not the kind of thing. Maybe ByuN is playing on purpose. Maybe he's done this on purpose. I would be so surprised though, because the interference matrix upgrade, it's still, even, you know what, when was it introduced? Like 4, 5, 6 months ago. It is still something that isn't inherently instinctual. Either it's a mistake in the sense that he forgot it, or in my opinion, it is a strategic mistake not to get it, because with 3 Ravens, you're going to have the time. It's only 50 minerals, 50 gas. I know gas is really valuable in TVT, but there's nothing more valuable than shutting down 3 tanks during a major mid-game fight. So even if he goes for the auto turrets, personally, I would really prefer to see the interference matrix play, but he is going to be able to get some harassment done. And I mean, well, with this much energy, he can potentially kill quite a few SCVs, especially as Kelazhur is not really going to be able to deal with this super well, since ByuN's also pushing at the front.
He is, but without the Ravens right there, you're really missing a lot of the power of this army. Yes, Dim's done for ByuN. He's going to try to get on top of this tank, and Kelazhur is just a little bit too slow. So we talked about how hard it might be, ByuN missing out on the Ravens, missing out on that power, but Kelazhur just doesn't react appropriately. And by the way, Ravens in the main base are getting more damage done. More auto turrets are going to get dropped. And I don't think ByuN has the energy to snipe one of those eBays. I don't think he's got that much power, but he gets half damage on it and gets 7 workers. And he finds his way down onto the third base, as well as he thinks about stimming on forward. Seems like a pretty expensive trade. Most of his Marines go down, but this is fine for him. The third base is not mining from Kelazhur. It's just the longer this goes, the better it is for ByuN.
Yeah, ByuN is very far ahead in terms of economy. He's done massive damage with these Ravens, and even if, in my opinion, it's a strategic mistake, it doesn't really matter, because ByuN has absolutely put himself in a game-winning position with this. He's going to find a 3rd command center, and that is... Actually, that might just be it here. Combat Shields is under extreme duress, and that's a huge upgrade in these Marine versus Marine fights. If ByuN targets that down, that would be massive. But instead, he's going to pick the fight against the Marines. He actually has a better concave, so with about a 1/3 the number of Marines, takes a reasonably decent trade before he's forced out.
Fast. On a scale...
Jesus, that resource is lost.
Oh, it's bad. It's really bad. Steadfast, on a scale of 0 to dead, how dead is Kelazhur right now?
There's your answer.
I was piped in Kelazhur 0. I'm like, Kelazhur, time this out.
You teed that one up about as perfectly as you could ever ask for.
Oh, man. You know, sometimes you're just sitting here, you're casting a game, and you get really lucky on the timings. But yeah, Kelazhur was very, very dead. I don't know. There was nothing he could have done. His third base is dead. His tech is not delayed, but there's just not enough of it. His army was smaller. He didn't have position. Game 1 goes the way of ByuN, which I think is as we expected. Game 2, of course, is going to get started soon enough.
Oh yeah, it's gonna get fired up real soon. That was a very impressive display from ByuN. I was critical of the strategic decision making to not get that interference matrix, but that's because I'm a purist, you know, and I'm like, ooh, turning off siege tanks, very good. Out multitasking opponent, killing a ton of SCVs, winning the game that way, also very good. And ByuN really flexed hard right there. And he's now 1 map away from basically locking up playoffs. And I think you and I have said in Real Talk Strategy that we expected ByuN to be a solid lock for 2nd place. Estrella gave him a really good run for his money, which is something I was also personally thinking would happen, is that Estrella would be a very good chance of maybe knocking ByuN off for that 2nd spot in the group. But ByuN is now, 1 map away from pretty much locking up playoffs. And he will, if he wins this one and continues to do well and wins against Firefly, he will have an opportunity to potentially win the group tomorrow going up against Cerro. We're getting ahead of ourselves, obviously. We still got StarCraft to play today, but ByuN's looking really good.
And talking about that Firefly ByuN series, that's now going to be on the mainstream coming up next. We're going to do Kelazhur and Skillis coming up after this. So just for those of you that are trying to figure out where you want to watch, that is what's going to happen. But we have game 2 ready and waiting. It's Kelazhur, ByuN's up 1. And the bottom right, in the blue, I know who this is this time. For the Rebellion, it's ByuN.
And his opponent spawning up at the top left for R8 Esports, it is Kelazhur. It's a shame about Kelazhur so far in this group because he has been playing quite well. He is playing quite well in general, but unfortunately for him, he just hasn't really been able to put the pieces together and make it happen in this group yet. There's still theoretically a chance, but Kelazhur is definitely going to have to focus things up. We will, of course, have that Kelazhur versus Skillis series that you talked about coming up after this one. But for now, I mean, this is the story of ByuN, you know, looking just really strong and really sharp.
Yeah, it's funny. I think we talked about things as well on Real Talk Strategy, and a lot of ByuN, in my opinion at least, was that a lot of ByuN's success or lack thereof going into day 2, going into day 3 was how many on-stage matches he was going to get. I think if he plays majority B and C stream, he maybe even tops the group. If he has a lot of mainstream games, you're maybe a little bit more worried, but he's had a lot of those mainstream games, and he is still looking as crispy as possible. He's going to get, of course, another one with that matchup against Firefly, which I'm kind of sad we're going to be casting during because Firefly is my one true love. I have fallen in love with him since his ESL Masters Winter Regional. I have his card on my desk. So I'm sad I don't get to watch it. I'll have to go watch it later on. That being said, that's a PvT. That's not this matchup right now. In game 1, we saw ByuN absolutely abuse Kelazhur with Ravens and with pressure and everything else. And for the moment, we're opening up in a very similar fashion. It's a barracks double gas factory type of expand. Both players are on the low ground, so no one's trying to pull the wool over their eyes or play maybe a little bit too safe by putting the command center on the high ground. And well, Steadfast, we go on. One Cyclone on the way for right now, but ByuN, the one wrinkle in this, he's getting a third Reaper.
Actually did this in game number 1. I'm not sure if there's a specific timing that he's concerned about, or if he, you know, maybe wants the option of, hey, maybe in a little bit I go across the map with 3 Reapers trying to run by into the main base. I think it's defensive in nature, but, you know, 3 Reapers do 2-shot SCVs, and that is a potentially strong setup. I don't know if there's anything specific that ByuN is concerned about. But either way, he's got this mapped out. He is a player who likes to skip SCV scouting, and that's exactly what he is doing here. But I'm really curious. That would be probably the first question I'd ask is like, ByuN, 3 Reapers before Reactor. What's going on here? But unfortunately, I won't be able to get the answer to that question. I'm just really curious because whenever you play with no SCV scout, you oftentimes have your own little twist on things that you might want to do certain things with. Regardless, though, it's just a small little tweak that ByuN likes.
Yeah, and as we see developing, again, this is a 1-1-1. Right, pretty much the exact same thing we saw in game number 1. The question I ask myself now is, does ByuN get Interference Matrix? He didn't need it, clearly, in game number 1. We don't see it on the way right now, but it's also a little bit too early to get it this early. Generally, you're going to get it, like, say, as your second Ravens in production, your third Ravens in production, because, well, first of all, pushes that need it don't really hit this early for the most part, and B, you only really want it once you have all your Ravens out, and then that's kind of becomes useful. Before then, who really cares? So we're going to keep an eye on that one as ByuN, very aggressive in game number 1. Now, he's got his third command center going up, but Kelazhur, look at this Steadfast. 2 additional barracks before the, well, yeah, 2 additional barracks before the third base.
Yeah, as well as a very quick stim. Kelazhur only getting 1 Raven here, not getting the he is getting a second Raven, but no Interference Matrix for Kelazhur. We do have ByuN. You know what? I'm talking about the triviality of 50 minerals, 50 gas. And I have been watching ByuN's money. He has had money for that interference matrix for a while, but he might have just decided like, hey, I want faster stim. I want faster upgrades. I want all these little things. And I mean, as critical as I was in game number 1, it worked for ByuN. And maybe he just prefers this. Maybe against a player like Cure or something else, he will go for that interference matrix. But it is a really interesting wrinkle to go to 3 Ravens and not get it. Now, Kelazhur, he is going for a pretty heavily dedicated 2-base play. But ByuN's double engineering bay, despite the fact that he got a 3rd CC, his double engineering bay is faster than Kelazhur's single engineering bay.
Now, what this also means is that ByuN is committed 450 minerals for a 3rd command center and an additional significant amount of minerals for
550.
double eBay, and more money and more gas for +1/+1 as well. So yeah, it's faster if depending on when Kelazhur decides to hit with, that may be end up being a problem. But this is a significant investment that ByuN is committed for 10 minutes or for 4 minutes from now, not for 2 minutes from now. So again, Kelazhur, despite ByuN, all of his timings are going to be fantastic. If Kelazhur can hit this just with a big supply lead, there is still absolutely some opportunities. Now Ravens are going to try to show up in the main base. Ravens defensively dropping some auto turrets as well. And this is not going to get a ton of economic damage. The Marines are there. Some of them will fall, but some of them may die steadfast. But I'm pretty sure that's a sacrifice Kelazhur is willing to make.
Some of you may die. That was actually quite a few Marines. That was 6 Marines.
Oh, wow.
And an SCV. That was a lot, but it was also a lot of auto turret energy. Now, the one thing about this setup is that you can kind of afford to be a little bit more frivolous with that auto turret energy because you're not caring about saving it up. And even just forcing... So this is actually really interesting because Kelazhur is going to be going for that 3rd CC behind this, but he does want to get something done. He's sacrificed worker count. Kelazhur, though, will be able to kill these Ravens. And, oh, they're actually going to see mostly a block on the auto turrets. Only one more getting able to be dropped here. And now Kelazhur will drop into the main base. ByuN, does he have enough to deal with this? The big advantage right now for Kelazhur's Marines is the combat shield. And this is going to be a lot of dead SCVs. Target fire on the Marines from Kelazhur. Very nice job. And he might just be picking up his first map win of the tournament. We've got more Marines coming back in, but 22 SCVs perish. Kelazhur will get cleaned up, and it's not over yet, but there is another push coming across the map. There's no interference matrix, unfortunately, for Kelazhur. If he had that here, he could just switch off all 3 of these tanks for ByuN and just run headlong into this 3rd base. But as it is, ByuN's defensive position looks pretty strong, and a tank gets sniped very early.
You know, steadfast, ByuN doesn't get that snipe without the Reapers, so actually he probably does. But I'm a little bit of cope on that one. That being said, you're right. This is a lot of power coming out of Kelazhur right now. He's got those Ravens. ByuN's going to try to stim on top. As the tank's on siege, Kelazhur, this is not the time to go run away. Everything, yeah, fine, gets away at the end of the day. The tanks do. The Marines do not whatsoever. Ravens fall as well, I think. All of a sudden, I mean, Kelazhur, talk about a time to try to run away. Cyclones on the other side, getting more SCVs. I think the Reapers are running, killing the work. Tank?
I think it was just a Cyclone,
Cyclone,
maybe?
Okay.
Oh, brave Sir Robin, he bravely ran away. Yeah, that was very unfortunate for Kelazhur. I was like, oh man, this is game-ending damage. Like Kelazhur might just take this right here now. Obviously, there was enough Marines for ByuN to clean that up, but 22 workers going down is huge. Kelazhur, though, that I mean, good job from ByuN to get on top of that army, but Kelazhur unsieging those tanks and leaving the rest of it abandoned really left him in the lurch. And now the upgrades are going to be ridiculously one-sided for about, what, how long? 20 seconds? There's going to be a 2-2 timing versus 1-0.
Yeah, it's going to be about a 20-second window where ByuN is going to be up 3 upgrades. Unfortunately, it doesn't have Raven, so he can't make it a 5 upgrade lead, but even still, these Marines are going to be insane. And yeah, ByuN took a lot of economic damage. His 3rd base was still on position for quite a while, so he's able to make up for the most part, drop into the main base here. There's a Liberator, and with the the missile turret as well, that does mean that ByuN should be cleaned up eventually. But we're seeing the power of those upgrades. Even 1-1 versus just +1. It took a decent rally of Marines into the main base, a Liberator, and a Raven spending anti-armor energy to finally crack that thing down. And even then, ByuN didn't trade that poorly given how much of a reaction there was from Kelazhur. And
take a look at the battle report. that was extremely good for Kelazhur. Kelazhur just killed 2 full medevacs. Only loses 6 Marines. Did have to trade some energy, but that actually kind of lets Kelazhur back into the game just a little bit. We are going to see a nice spotter Marine from Kelazhur. Spots this big move from ByuN on the left, but can Kelazhur even stop it? He's got nothing in the natural, a siege tank in the main, and there are a few Marines here. ByuN will get pushed back, and actually, hang on, there are more units behind this, so it's a little bit of a trap. That works actually pretty well for Kelazhur, considering how scary that could have been. Kelazhur once again comes out ahead in that little trade. 11 Marines for 5. Okay, good job from Kelazhur. He got back in a hurry. But the upgrades. Yeah. Oh, we're going to see another move back into the natural.
Yeah, we see ByuN. He's recognized that he's got this incredible timing where he's not up 3 upgrades right now. He's only up 2, but he's going to have another because, well, plus 2 armor was also even slower. That he's trying to abuse this Marine timing. All right, so we're seeing him sim in, take advantages, trying to take really good trades. The crazy thing is, despite all of that, Kelazhur's the one that's been trading better in this game by about 1,000, 1,300 resources, which, again, you know, part of that was how bad that, or how good that drop was from Kelazhur and ByuN's main base. Part of that is losing the Ravens. Part of that was losing the double drop on the right side. It's kind of funny. It looked like Kelazhur took a while to kill it off, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. And now, well, it actually matters for Kelazhur, but now a drop on this 4th base is going to take the tank down very quickly. Targets that down. SCVs are going to get pulled, and ByuN responds. But anything that Kelazhur can do to keep ByuN off the map, to force ByuN to stay on his side of the map, is really, really nice. But ByuN, he's already got a double drop on the left side. Damage on this building planetary, or not even started, but will be a planetary soon. And now into the natural. There's a single missile turret. Absolutely steadfast, but it's only a missile turret. The bio is not really in response. But ByuN, that very damaged medevac should get targeted down. There we go. So ByuN, again, he's kind of breaking against the wall that is Kelazhur. On the right side, tries to get a little bit more, knocks these tanks down. Absolutely, and a big siege up on the right side as well. This is where it gets a little bit scarier. Because we have the upgrade lead, we're getting some massive tank shots on these Marines, though. And you talk about upgrades all you want. When you drop an anti-armor missile on top of it, the tanks shred them. ByuN loses his 3rd base. Kelazhur keeps his alive. And again, ByuN, it looked like that siege up was going to be horrifying, but he just breaks himself against the wall that is Kelazhur.
Yeah, that was a situation where Kelazhur's counterattack got ByuN. So we looked at the where I was looking with the camera is the opposite of where ByuN was looking, and that was illustrated by the fact that a bunch of those Marines ran into those siege tanks to their death. Kelazhur getting a very fortunate find right there. A huge mistake being forced out of ByuN, running 25, 30 Marines into their death in those tanks. Not even actually running them in, just letting them go into that. Now, there is still 3-3 versus 2-2, and the army is still very big for ByuN with a lot of siege tanks. But Kelazhur has an opportunity for himself now, having killed that 3rd command center. ByuN is going to be looking to make plays. There is a well-placed siege tank here for Kelazhur, but ByuN, one of the best Marine tank players in the business, is going to be able to snipe down that tank. Kelazhur pulls back those Marines. Good job. Doesn't let ByuN do unto him what he did unto ByuN, you know, a minute and a half ago.
That's the best. Kelazhur has one job right now. It's right time for 3-3. And you know what? It's a 2 upgrade lead for ByuN. Anti-armor missile, it's 2 upgrades. As long as this is true, ByuN will really struggle to fight on into this. And look at this surrounds getting set up from Kelazhur. That is so many Marines on the right side. +1 or +3 attack.
Waiting out the anti-armor missile, though.
Yeah.
Oh my God, ByuN, what are we doing? Oh, okay. That Marine that rallied just spotted this this huge contingent of Marines. ByuN is going to go for a big doom drop into the main base with 3 full medevacs of bio. And he will get past this big missile turret setup. But with the Vikings coming in from the back, this is a fully committed drop. It will eventually die. ByuN not going to be making any moves during all this. He's trying to maybe find an opening, but Kelazhur, he's got just 1 tank on the left. If ByuN can identify this, he can move in and start sieging this planetary.
As ByuN will finally lose that drop in the main base as well. Kelazhur's got
there's that scan.
Sorry?
Oh, he scanned and he saw the army. Now ByuN will be able to reposition. Kelazhur going to try and get back over here with the tanks on the left, but ByuN has a good siege position in the meanwhile.
Yeah, that he does. ByuN, or I should say, +3 is finally done for Kelazhur, so it would have been nice to hold that anti-armor missile you were talking about, absolutely. But the Marines are still good for ByuN. They're not quite as impressive as they once were. Is now, I mean, ByuN runs Marines into siege tank line. He takes a shot, tanks a shot. But now he's ready to move forward because he has that vision advantage. But Kelazhur's doing what he did before, the thing that built him a lead in this game at the very start. He's running 30 Marines up the gullet, up a tank. That's going to get knocked down very quickly. Now, the problem is that even as these are 3-2 Marines, planetaries are still a little bit rough to break without tanks. So Kelazhur instead moves up the natural. There are a couple tanks right there. That's not going to be enough. Some Marines will die, but again, ByuN loses a ton of economy right now. He's going to lose his natural orbital on top of things, and these Marines are going to try to get on top of their medevac ceiling, so ByuN will clean this up eventually. But Steadfast, if he had not gotten the 4th base, let's say at what cost, but he did just get the 4th base, the natural's important. It represents mules, but it's also a lot closer to being mined out than the 4th base is.
Yes, one thing to note during that is that the medevacs were out of energy, so ByuN obviously was able to break through that despite the medevacs being there, and he did have the 3-2 versus 3-3 advantage for the end of that skirmish. So ByuN is able to clean this up. This game has turned so scrappy. Kelazhur trying to sneak up on top of these Marines, not able to get the jump. ByuN paying attention, getting away from there. Good job with that, and I do want to say that Kelazhur actually saved the medevacs, which is really nice in a game that is so scrappy like this, where both players are taking huge economic hits. ByuN gonna try and come in on top of this position. That is a very bold move, but he will pay a hefty cost for it. Doesn't get even a single tank of his opponent, losing so many units. Meanwhile, on the left side, looks like, I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but at least a medevac goes down, trying to dive, maybe dropping on top of these tanks. But it looks like Kelazhur keeps him alive. All of a sudden, Kelazhur is up 10 tanks to 5. He's way down in Marines, but that's because ByuN is really focusing on those Marines. Liberator harass on the pocket 3rd, which is the lifted main command center, will be quite good. ByuN, oh my god, this action everywhere here. ByuN gonna find his command center on the top side.
Dude, Clem Oliveira game 2 was fantastic, and we're just getting another one of those crazy late game TVTs, which, welcome back. We missed you in Atlanta. Where were you?
Oh, sneaky tanks. Very nice from ByuN. Sneaks up on top of these tanks, has the range set up perfectly, gets the kill on one, finds the Liberator as well, and might just be able to take down this base. ByuN is going to be able to jump these 2 tanks in the backfield, which is maybe even, well, I mean, it's pretty good at getting both, actually. He might get both. Siege tanks and that. Meanwhile, on the top side, Kelazhur does clean up a lot of ByuN's army, but both players taking absolute massive hammer blows to the head, chest, and body as a monster siege tank shot. No, ByuN, no!
So now we're in this situation, Steadfast, where Kelazhur's literally on one. He's got 3 bases technically, but he's mining literally from 1 base. His economy is, no, that's not even mining from base. That's 4 mineral patches. That is nothing. Meanwhile, ByuN, he's got a ton of money. He's lacking, though, in a couple things. He's A, lacking in army supply. B, he's lacking in tank count. C, he's lacking in +2 on the tank. So his tank 2-shot Marines that are stimmed. Kelazhur's tanks 1-shot Marines that are stimmed. That's a big deal. There is so much power in Kelazhur's army right now, and he's got to take advantage of this right now to go knock Marines down, to go take multiple bases down. And ByuN understands this time. He understands the position that he's in. He can lose a base. At this point, that's okay. As long as he gets counter damage done, as long as he makes Kelazhur bleed for what's happening, it's going to be a dead planetary on the right side. The SCVs get out. There's another command center that I think we saw floating on over to the left side. Kelazhur needs to get more done. He needs to knock these SCVs down on the right side. He needs to get another base out of ByuN before ByuN takes advantage of this massive supply lead, or massive income lead that he has.
That is absolutely true. We are going to see an attack coming in on the right side. ByuN catching Kelazhur a little bit on siege, grabs 2 tanks, but will eat a big siege tank volley on the other side. Kelazhur, he's able to keep that army integrity together. He needs to get some mining set up again, though. ByuN is still mining from this planetary. Kelazhur, though, actually, ByuN needs to repair. Oh, ByuN needs to repair. Repair. No repair. And that is because there's a Liberator on the left side. Both players are really being pushed to their limits. Kelazhur and ByuN are even on workers. Look at that Liberator sieging up as the base lands. The SCVs, oh, that's a lot of dead SCVs. Oh, it's actually less than I thought. 7 dead SCVs. I thought they were all just super stacked up. Still, that's pretty much every SCV that was in that top right, because I guess the rest of them died killing the Marines. Very cute little move from Kelazhur. Oh, nice job. Can he get another one?
It's only 2 Marines. I don't know. There's gonna, no, he's not gonna get both.
Not enough. Good job from ByuN to cover that.
All right.
Kelazhur prioritizing siege tanks on the rebuild, whereas ByuN is building so many Marines right now. Kelazhur needs a little bit of time to reestablish his economy. Look at that, 27 workers out of 8. I would love to see him lift that orbital from the natural, send it down to that 9 o'clock base, but these siege tanks are sieging up. Good job from ByuN, spots it with the scan, gonna drop on top and get all 3 of these tanks. Very well done by Micro Jackson to recognize the opportunity.
Steadfast, what you talked about the tanks as well, it makes a ton of sense. That's where Kelazhur's power is. He cannot afford the minerals to build a ton more Marines, but his tanks are just always gonna be better than what ByuN has. Kelazhur, at the very least, he does have that right side, that north side base that's been reestablished. It is a planetary. So Kelazhur's economy is still in dire straits, absolutely, but it's not as bad as it was. And these Marines cannot break the planetary, not easily. But by that same metric, Kelazhur, this one mining base, or I guess ByuN has the right side base as well, but this fresh mining base that ByuN has, Kelazhur's not going to be able to break that either. The Liberators are there. The Viking count for Kelazhur is non-existent. Actually, he doesn't have any bit of that whatsoever. So he's going to have to find a different rotation.
Look at the income tab for just a second.
No gas.
0 gas mining. We got Kelazhur. He's reestablishing gas mining at this pocket third, the original third base. But for a while, neither player is mining gas. Kelazhur does still have a big gas bank. Huge scan from ByuN. He does have Liberators right here. Vikings on the way. That is a necessity for Kelazhur right here. But ByuN, oh, he has outpositioned Kelazhur. There is a big couple of siege tank shots, but the Liberators are really going to be a problem, and the speed of ByuN's army movement is also a problem. I think Kelazhur might just need to base trade at this point. Oh, that siege tank was in range of the other two, so they do trade out 1 for 1. But yeah, Kelazhur, he's in a really tough position, but he's got to go. He's got to make a decision one way or another.
The fact that Kelazhur kept that orbital alive, at least I think he did, is kind of crazy. But now, well, we're going to see a third base go down. Kelazhur needs to knock these tanks down so quickly. He cannot, even if he has the better tanks, he cannot afford to take the damage from these tanks. Every single Marine, every single tank is so important right now for Kelazhur. He's going to get to third base. I think he's got... Yeah, Viking's going to land on the tanks on the right side, so ByuN is going to get those tanks that are trying to kill the planetary down on the bottom side as well. Kelazhur's going to find another base that he's been angling for the last 5 minutes or so. SCVs fall. I think the orbital dies, and it will. Kelazhur hot pick up into the main base now. ByuN has just about as much economy, has just about as much mining as Kelazhur at this point. And while Kelazhur's army supply is falling down just a little bit, it's all about this doom drop into the main base. And the choke is disgusting now. Now ByuN's going to find the rest of his Marines, and now Kelazhur has to run away. It's a 30 army supply lead for ByuN at this point. But again, the tanks are what we're looking at. That tank count, 8 of them, yeah, sure. 3 of them are going to get knocked down. It's going to be 5 tanks to 4. Kelazhur's tanks are just a little bit better, but he's going to have to find so much better positioning. Because again, ByuN has this right side base. He doesn't have a lot of minerals, but his army supply should be able to buttress some of that.
Good job from Kelazhur. Finally going to be able to land on this left side. That is a huge deal. He did actually lose that orbital before. They're both on just 1 orbital, 1 planetary right now. Wait, no, never mind. No, the planetary died. ByuN only has the 1 orbital. Oh man, this is a tenuous situation. A crazy game number 2 between these two players. Kelazhur is down in army supply, but it is mostly in that Marine count. We have a couple of SCVs going down, I think maybe to that Liberator. Huge siege tank blast on ByuN's army. ByuN's got to be so careful. These siege tanks, you said they're a little bit more powerful for Kelazhur. They are so powerful. Oh, we are going to see on the top side. Very nice job with that Liberator. And a massive doom drop into the main base. Kelazhur doesn't have the units in position to deal with this. It's 50 Marines to 70. ByuN should not be taking damage from these missile turrets right now. He really can't afford to. Oh my god, a full medevac. No! He loses it with 6 Marines inside. That's a huge find for Kelazhur. Kelazhur can jump this. He can target down the medevacs and maybe get everything. Gets 1 medevac. 2nd and 3rd do escape. Viking was able to kill that Liberator from before. We do have ByuN making a move on the left side. The supplies are so close. Economies are so bad for both players. You talked about Clem and Oliveira. We are getting down to the nitty gritty here. Orbital command is going to get taken down. ByuN gets a massive find. There's now no scans available. Oh, is ByuN going to go for those tanks? No. Wise decision. Wise decision. That would have been a game right there if he runs all those Marines into what, 5 sieged tanks? Yeah, 5 siege tanks plus 2 more sieging up.
Kelazhur doesn't have the money to build another orbital, but you almost feel like he needs it, not just for the mules. Mules are important, but
he needs scans. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He needs this vision
Oh god,
advantage.
the siege up, and that's why you need scans. Nice hot pickup there, saves one of the tanks, but these tanks are on the retreat. Huge concave from ByuN. He's gonna crush through, finds the fight, finds the angle, and takes this one down. What a banger of a game number 2.
Dude, well, I went into this and saying, hey, you know, Kelazhur did take a map off Maru. It's a different meta, sure, fine, but he did it, and he showed us just what he can do. Unfortunately, Kelazhur has still not taken a map at Katowice, which is, considering how good Kelazhur has been looking in ESL Masters.